So today we're going to be talking about winter in the English classroom. I'll open the chat, so if you want to put messages in there, you can chat to me on the chat. I'll try to keep checking that while we're going. Welcome back. We had a webinar last week, but I wasn't there, so welcome back to our webinars for 2025. Appropriately, we're going to be talking about winter in the English classroom, and I'm here in Ireland, very cold, so it's feeling very wintry here. As always, you will receive a certificate of participation and a webinar handout in the next few days. We had a few problems with the platform that sent them last week, so if you didn't get one, just email us and I'll get one out to you. There is a very good handout accompanying this evening's webinar. It's got a lot of worksheets, so don't miss out on that. So if you don't get it, generally we send them out tomorrow afternoon, and so just send us an email at Formazione if you don't get it by then. Check your spam as well, because occasionally they unfortunately end up in spam. Okay. As we all know, winter is a very evocative period. Whether you live in an area blanketed by snow, maybe up in the north of Italy or in the mountains, or just where the temperature drops a little, like where I live generally in Naples, or where I'm from in Australia. Using themes of winter, English teachers can interest students in their surroundings and in the language used to describe it. So, every season should be seen as a bit of an opportunity to talk about these different aspects. So, the landscapes, the words like snow, the winter vocabulary, the idioms, things like that. And we have talked about autumn. We've talked about we're talking today about winter. We will be talking about spring. Unfortunately, we don't do webinars during the summer period. Otherwise, we'd have one on summer as well. But I think there's plenty of things I'm sure you don't need our help with themes of summer. Let us know in the chat what your favourite aspect of winter is. Okay, let's leave Christmas and New Year's Eve aside because we've already talked about those in a webinar in December. Let us know in the chat what you like about winter, whether it's the open fires, the foods, things like that. So let me know. Sylvia says the Christmas vibes. Good answer. Okay. As always, we have some objectives. That is, you should be able to examine winter themes to enhance vocabulary and idiomatic expression. So we're going to have a look at a little bit of vocabulary and some idioms, not just together, but those in two different parts. And I've got some worksheets about that. All very good answer, Marzia. Christmas holidays, it's always a good one. Okay. Integrate engaging and innovative winter-themed activities into plans. We've got some good fun activities this evening. Snowball fight will be one that I didn't know about before I started thinking about this webinar, but I really want to use it in my lessons. Okay, and we are also, as often we do with seasonal or event-themed webinars, we're going to talk about some English literature about this. Let me know in the chat if you have any literature that is particularly winter themed, leaving aside Christmas, because Christmas is sort of a genre of its own. But are there any books, short stories, poems, plays set in winter times or with winter themes that you particularly like, whether in English or in another language? So let's have a look at some winter vocabulary. Let's just have a look here. So let's have a look at this in the following video. Let me know. Oh, Antonella likes the dead. I hope you attended our Christmas webinar because we did talk about that in there. So, Sylvia as well. Okay. Please let me know in the chat if you could hear the sound here. As you might have noticed in the video, introductory video, we had a few problems. I couldn't seem to share the sound. So please let me know if you can hear it here. Okay.
Hey guys, I'm Alex, and welcome to this lesson on winter vocabulary.
Can everyone hear that? I'll just wait for the chat just to make sure. Okay, good. Okay.
So I'm from Canada, I live in Canada, and right now it is winter. It's very cold. I'm jealous of people from Brazil and India and everywhere where there's no snow right now. So today I'm going to teach you a little bit about winter vocabulary, since many parts of the world have winter. Okay, so I have some pictures, and they all represent things related to winter. So these pieces of ice that hang down, from either a building, a roof, something, they're hard, they can hurt you. These are called icicles. Icicles. So in the winter in Canada, you must watch out for falling icicles from tall buildings. They can hurt you. It's not cool. Okay. Obviously, most of you know what snow is, or the word is snow. Now, a
Sorry there, I don't know what
single
happened there.
piece of snow, right? Each little piece of snow we call a snowflake. So one piece of snow, if you can call it a piece of snow, is a snowflake. Okay, so in the winter, it snows a lot. And if you look outside, you can use the verb, and you see snow falling, you can say, it's snowing. Okay, just like raining, but snowing. Now, in the winter, sometimes when you have lots of snow and it gets wet, and if it's on the street and there are many cars driving over the snow becomes brown and a little bit like, not really water, but very, very dirty, very messy, very sloppy. When snow becomes like this, like brown and wet, we call this slush. So this is slush. Okay. So we can say, if I ask you, how is the weather outside? I can say, it's slushy. Okay. So slush is not good for your shoes because the water gets into your socks, and it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. Okay. Here we have an unfortunate situation. There is a man, maybe a girl, and they're walking on the street, and then suddenly they almost fall because there's ice on the floor, right? There's ice on the street. So we can say it's icy outside. It's icy. So the sidewalk, for example, can be icy. If it's icy, that means it's slippery, because if you can fall, you can slip. So the road is slippery. Slippery. Okay, this is an adjective. Now, when we talk about temperature, most of you know the word cold, right? So, and when you start from the top, we have hot and everything like that, but if we start from cold, let's put cold over here. Okay, what is a little warmer than cold, but still not that nice? We say chilly.
Feel free to respond in the chat if you know the words that he's going to say.
It's chilly. Okay, what's a little bit warmer than chilly, but still not warm, is cool. So we have cool, chilly, cold. So think about it this way. Cool, not bad. It's okay. It's cool. Chilly, okay, I need a jacket. I need a jacket. It's getting chilly. Cold, okay, it's cold. Then the worst one, we have freezing. It's freezing. Now, freezing is like this. You're shaking. It's very, very cold. It's freezing. Okay? Okay, guys. So, if you ever visit my country, come to Canada, be prepared, have a winter hat, winter jacket, be prepared, watch for icicles. Don't go out in the snow when it snows too much, although it's pretty. Stay away from slush if you want your shoes to be dry. Um, don't fall. Just don't fall. That's it. Okay, guys, if you want to test your understanding of this vocabulary, check out the quiz on engvid.com. Take care. Stay warm. Happy holidays, even though that's in December. Enjoy your winter. Take care.
Okay, you couldn't hear me. Okay, sorry, I had myself on mute. I beg your pardon. Okay. Anyway, what I was saying is beg your pardon about that. Okay. Um, let us know what you got for these ones. Okay, so we had slush, cool, chilly, freezing. What I was saying before that is that it's very often very good to have some vocabulary like cool or chilly or freezing, in addition to just words like cold or hot. Okay, words like cold and hot, very easy for students to use, and they can put very, very cold, very hot, quite cold. But using words like, these extreme expressions, these are much better. Okay, I hope you can hear me now. Okay. Um, anyway, let's go ahead. Sorry about that. Okay. We've got some winter idioms there too, and some fantastic idioms. Let me know in the chat if you have any idioms that are related to winter, not necessarily with the word winter in there, but some other expressions. Oh, Gaetano's got to feel under the weather. Okay? An expression which generally means you're feeling a bit sick. Okay? Not necessarily totally sick, but maybe just a bit exhausted, sort of sick. Here's some favorites of mine. Okay. Let me know if you know the meaning of these. To be on thin ice or to walk on thin ice. Who was it? Dorina anticipated us one here. So to get or to have cold feet. I have cold feet, or I'm getting cold feet. Okay. The snowball effect. What is the snowball effect when we talk about, something being? You can also say it's like a snowball. You could even say it's snowballing. A lot of people in the chat talking about raining cats and dogs. And to be snowed under. If I say I'm snowed under, what do I mean? Um, we've created a worksheet here that's there's two versions of it, one with the answers and one that you can print out for your students. And it's got it's got three different definitions for each idiom, and the students got to choose which one they think is great. Okay? I'm going to explain them now. So let's have a look. As I said, these will also be in the handout. So to be or to walk on thin ice is to be in a risky or dangerous situation that could easily lead to trouble. So in that case, what it really means is that if I say, oh, be careful, you're walking on thin ice, think about this. If there's a lake and it's thin ice, then you might be okay, but if you step too hard, okay, you'll break the ice and fall in. So if you're walking on thin ice, it's sort of saying be very careful. Often it's as a warning, in the sense like if someone's being a bit rude or arrogant or something, and you're giving them a warning to say don't continue like that. Okay. If you have cold feet, generally means you're feeling too nervous to follow through with a plan or commitment. The main use of this, maybe it's a bit of a stereotype, but I'm sure you've seen it in films. For example, when you say he got cold feet, it often means that a man is having second thoughts about getting married. Okay, so man who's getting married tomorrow, and he's talking to his friends or talking to his fiance and worried about that he's whether he's doing the right thing. Usually it's used in that context, but it could be about, for example, if you're going to buy something, if you're going to buy a house, you might not be sure at the last minute. The snowball effect, as you've probably seen in video games, in cartoons, things, when you have a snowball rolling down the hill, it gets generally bigger and bigger. I don't know if that's true in real life, but at least in the cartoons it does. So it's a situation where something grows increasingly larger, usually indicating it's going to be out of control. Okay. And Gaetano had it snowed under with work. Okay. So if you have an overwhelming amount of work, snowed under, I guess, literally would be, for example, if it snowed a lot and your car is covered in snow, you can say it's snowed under. Okay. But I think the metaphor here is that your desk is snowed under. You've got so many sheets of paper or things to do. Okay. Um, you should have some fun with these. This can be a really good exercise, and it's one we've sort of done before. What you can do is get students to find an idiom. You can give them the correct meaning, or give each student an idiom, give them the correct meaning, and they have to write two false definitions, but believable. Okay. So if you can see the webinar, sorry, the handout there, to be or to walk on thin ice, A is obviously the correct one, to be in a dangerous situation. Okay, I've given you also B and C, which is to face a sudden change or to feel lost or uncertain. Okay, but what you could do is just give them the correct one and get them to come up with the other ones. That can be really sort of creative way of doing it. At the same time, they're learning it, and then they can present it to other students, and the other students have to guess the correct one. Okay. What you really want, if they've done it well, the students will guess the wrong one, because they've made it so believable. Now, one activity I mentioned before, this is something that I found out when I was researching this. I saw some people who have done this, a snowball fight. So a snowball fight's a fun activity that you can use in class to get students asking questions to their classmates. So what we do, and again, this is all in the handout, so you don't need to take notes or anything. You get this tomorrow. Okay, give each student two pieces of paper. Okay, could be just photocopier paper. It could even be just out of a notepad. Doesn't need to be big. Okay, they write questions. So students write a general question on each piece. Okay, so for example, what is your favorite animal? Okay, ensure the questions are checked for grammar and spelling. So they need to write two questions, one on one piece of paper and a different one on a different piece of paper. Okay. And again, I think you want to encourage students not just to ask questions, what's your name? How old are you? I guess you could if you're doing very low level. Okay. But you want to get some questions that can even be followed up on. For example, what's your favorite animal? If they say an elephant, you could ask why. Okay, so it could be thinking about a following one. Now, what's always really important when you do activities like this, where students are going to write something and then have to ask it, is it's, in my opinion, it's always a very good idea to go around the class and check that these are correct, because you don't want the students asking incorrect questions to other people, because that's sort of, if a student has problems, is unsure, then it's sort of validating that error. So you want to get in there, correct it, correct the spelling as well. Okay. Now the fun part, make snowballs. So the students crumple up the paper into snowballs, as you can see on the screen there. And what they do now, not all together, but choose one student. You can point at one student and say, throw your snowball at another student. Okay, not too hard. They're only paper, so it shouldn't be too bad. Okay. When it goes to that person, now maybe they throw it and that person catches it. Maybe it goes towards another person. Doesn't matter. It can be the person who catches it, even if it wasn't the intended person. Okay. And that person has to open it out and answer the question, as well as expanding, as I said, why you like that animal. So what you've got to encourage students is not just to answer the question, but to go on to talk about more and more. Okay. After answering, they throw that snowball into the bin. That one's done. Okay. And then they have to throw one of their own snowballs to another student. So it's like a question chain, which we've done in other webinars. Someone asks me a question, I answer it, I ask another person a question. But you can imagine it's a lot more fun when you're throwing things about. Not to be forgotten the part about putting the snowballs in the bin. You don't want to finish the activity, all the students leave, and then you've got to spend 10 minutes cleaning up the classroom. So it's much better to get the students to do their own cleaning up. Okay? Repeat until all the students have answered. Okay? The reason I had two is what you can do is you can have two rounds of it, or after they've crumpled them up, they don't know which one is which, so they throw them and they're not sure which one they've thrown. Okay, so you can repeat until all students have answered or all snowballs are used. What you could do is stand up at the beginning, and after each person has received and thrown a snowball, they sit down. That way, you're not throwing them to the same person. Okay. As is always a good idea, I think the teacher should demonstrate by throwing the first snowball or by telling a student to throw a snowball at them. Right? What you really want to encourage students also not to, they should be able to throw this snowball at anyone, not at a particular person. So you don't want them to be asking a friend a question that is specific to that friend or that person. Okay. You could also get students to throw idioms or new vocabulary to be defined. So they could write an idiom, crumple it up, they throw it, and the other student has to answer it or guess what it means, okay, or use it in a sentence. This can be really fun too. To be honest, you can even give out snowballs and write a new word, a new winter vocabulary on each one, and they throw them around. I haven't played it, but I think it should be really fun. Okay, let me know in future webinars if you end up playing it and how it went. Okay. Another really good fun one is Winter Mad Libs. I'm not sure if you know what Mad Libs is, but it's a activity that can be played not just about winter, but you'll see. It's a game in which players ask a random noun, verb, place, celebrity, exclamation, part of the body, whatever it is. It could be a color, it could be a drink, a food, a man's name, woman's name, an animal, all of these things. And then you insert it into a pre-made sentence. Now, let me explain a bit more. Okay. The sentence produced inevitably turns out to be absurd and ridiculous. So what I'm doing is getting a sentence and I take out one of the nouns, or I take out one of the verbs, or I take out, for example, when it has a part of the body. So if I say, I had a very sore knee, so I couldn't go jogging. Now, before you say that sentence, you you elicit from the students, tell me a part of the body. And a student says, I don't know, ear. And then you say, read out the sentence. I had a very sore ear, so I couldn't go jogging. Obviously, it's absurd. But what you can do is a pair of students receive the winter theme sentence with a gap. Can be two gaps. Okay, this can be done by dictation too, so you can integrate it there. Okay, in pairs they have to work out the best word to fill the space. Okay, now this is the one where they're actually working out the best word. Okay, so this is played in two stages. Okay, they also have to identify what type of speech it is. So whether it's an adverb, a verb, if it's a verb, what type of verb it is. It's in present, third person present, that is the S form, the in, the past simple, the past participle, etc. Okay, as well as any more specific information. Okay, is it a color? Is it a food? So it can be an adjective, but also a color. Okay, it could be a color and also a noun. It could be a noun, also a food. Okay. Now the fun begins. Choose one pair of students. They have to ask another pair for a word according to the part of speech. So again, they just say, they don't read out the sentence at this stage. They just say a past simple verb or a beverage or a color. The students with the sentence now have to read back their sentence with the word inserted. That is the one that the student said before they knew the context. Okay. So let me give you an example. So this could be the real sentence. Okay, we bundled up into our heavy coats and headed outside to build a snowman. Now, heavy, we have an adjective, obviously. Okay. In the last one, we have snowman. So in that one, we have a noun. Okay? So what I say to people, and again, it won't work with you because you've seen the whole sentence, but I say, give me an adjective and a noun, not necessarily together, but one adjective and one noun. Okay. So some students could do, for example, we bundle the adjective could be intelligent and the noun could be notebook. We bundled up into our intelligent coats and headed outside to build a notebook. Okay. This can be, it might seem a bit banal here, but it can be really fun. Okay. And I've produced a worksheet with a lot of these winter theme things. Again, I've given you two versions. I've given you one version which just has the blank spaces. And again, you can give it to the students and they can, first part, they can try to fill in the words that they think are appropriate. And then you can also say, okay, but also in brackets above that word. So, for example, if they put down heavy and snowman, above that they have to put in adjective, noun. Okay. And again, if there's anything in particular, if it's a particular type of verb or whatever, and then they elicit that. And that's where it becomes fun. Okay. So the sentences become a little bit crazy. Okay. So you've got some sentences there. Okay, so it was a winter morning, and the was glistening in the sunlight. Okay, so again, I would imagine the first one's an adjective, and the second one's a noun. It needs to be a singular noun as well because it was. Okay, so again, adjective, they might say tall. Okay, and a noun, they might say telephone. So it was a tall winter morning, and the telephone was glistening in the sunlight. Again, a bit crazy. But these are the sort of things. It gets people thinking about it. It gets them being creative. And the other thing, it's fun. And it also gets them to think. They might not even realize, but they're thinking critically about language. Okay? They're trying to identify what are adjectives. They're noticing where they go. They're thinking about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Fun activity. Let me know if you've ever played anything similar to it, or let us know how it goes in the future. As often with seasonal themed webinars, we're going to talk about a bit of literature. Very popular, maybe even the most popular American poet is Robert Frost. Okay, which better poet would be appropriate for winter than the aptly named Robert Frost? Okay, Frosty the Snowman. Robert Frost was an American poet renowned for his depictions of rural New England life. Actually, he wasn't born in New England. He was born in San Francisco, but he moved to Massachusetts after his father's death. And I believe he owned a chicken farm for a while. Okay? In collections such as North of Boston, Massachusetts, Frost's poetry often explored themes of nature, isolation, and human emotion, blending simple language with profound insights. He's very well known in America. He's actually a poet which sometimes he has a reputation of being sort of like what we might say a greeting card poet. That is a poet who has sort of nice seasonal or nice ideas in his poetry. They're actually a lot darker than you might realize. Okay. One thing you might not know is that he was chosen to read at John F. Kennedy's inauguration, okay, on January 20th, 1961. So he actually wrote a poem for the inauguration, but I believe it was too bright, and he was quite old, and it was too bright to. In fact, he was almost at the end of his life. He couldn't read it, and so he recited a poet he knew by heart. Okay. One of his most famous poems takes place in rural New England in the middle of winter, and that is "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening." Okay, let's have a look at it and listen to it. We've actually got Robert Frost himself reading it here. Okay.
Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Well-known poem that you might know, but it's a lot darker than sometimes people realise. Okay, the poem has this rhyme scheme of A B A B B C B C C D C, and a final stanza of all the same. Okay, partly because of this repetition in the last two lines. Okay. Um, a little bit like Dante with Terza Rima. Okay, we have the next stanza's rhymes anticipate the previous stanzas anticipate the next ones. Okay? Notice how the repeated soft sounds of the first stanza mimic the wind and falling snow. So we have these sort of soft sounds like whose, woods, think, though. Okay, so these sort of soft sounds because he's getting you in there. Okay. When the thoughts of the narrator intrude, there's a repetition of the harder consonants. Think, queer. Okay. And again, it is true that think has part of the soft sound and part of the hard sound, but what's emphatic there is the consonants of the k, queer. Okay, so the repetition is the part that's important, not just all the different sounds, but the ones that are repeated. Okay, and then later on, it comes back to the soft sounds. Okay, he gives his harness bells a shake, so we have this sh sound in the third stanza, when again the thoughts of the narrator are interrupted by the movement of the horse. And then we have the repetition of the last line, which is something that often people don't notice, but it's a bit of a clue, I think, that he doesn't just mean the literal meaning. Okay, often this is something that poets can do. A repetition of a line or a repetition of a symbol, or even something that's not even a symbol, like a literal meaning. Once you repeat it, it sort of becomes a bit more symbolic. It shows that it's got a bit of emphasis there. So it's a clue, in my opinion, it's a clue that Robert Frost wants us to go beyond the surface meaning there. Okay, like many of his poems, as I said before, a simple theme, this sort of New England winter landscape, it masks a terrifying insight. Okay, what is it that is luring the narrator to stay in the snow? Why is it the narrator wants to stay in this snowy landscape? Is it just idleness and a desire to avoid his responsibilities? That is, I have promises to keep. And I mean, I think it is also that, okay? But could it be something darker? A desire, like as Freud might say, the death drive, okay, a desire for death or oblivion. The idea that the idleness can just lead you, okay? And the idea that he says lovely, dark and deep. Again, sort of strange, this sort of dark and deep. He's talking about white snow. It's a bit strange that he's talking about such a cold landscape as lovely. Okay. There is another poem, Design, one of my favorites by Frost, and in this he also contemplates how darkness and white both have this sort of idea of evil. Okay, that is not, we often contrast white for good or innocence and black with evil or death. But if you look at that one, he talks about how he sees a white spider on a white flower eating a white moth, and he thinks how this sort of evokes something that even though it's white, it's going against sort of what we stereotype it as. Okay. Have a look at Robert Frost. I think you'll find him a good poet also to talk about with Italian students. His language is really quite simple. I mean, superficially simple maybe, but you won't find a lot of difficult words in there. He generally speaks in a quite simple, almost a bit like we might say William Wordsworth, a sort of the language spoken by men, not by poets. Anyway, to conclude, as we just saw, the contradictions of winter are quite interesting to talk about with students. We have the white snow, but the dark nights. We have the cold outside, but warm inside. We have the isolation, that is, you're cut off from other people. There's not many people in the streets. But the togetherness that, as a few people mentioned in the chat, you're together with family at home. Okay, these sort of range of themes, vocabulary, and activities can really evoke the season, so it can be a really good opportunity. Okay, there are many other works of literature. I think we've had a few in the chat there. So we had Christmas Carol, Winter's Tale, The Sergeant in the Snow. Okay? These sort of ones. One of my favorites, probably my favorite poet, is Wallace Stevens, who's an American poet. His The Snowman is a really interesting poem. It's not really about a snowman. It's actually about the idea of trying to think yourself into a landscape. It's quite a complex poem, but maybe we'll look at it in the future. Okay? As always, winter clothes, foods, festivals, and customs make great content for English lessons. We've looked at some of these. So we've looked at Christmas and New Year's as festivals. There's obviously some foods that are traditional in colder countries for winter times, and customs, things like that can be great explorations to sort of get people thinking about their own customs, describe them in English, but also about other ones. Okay. Let us know in the chat if you've got any ideas. We will have obviously a spring webinar coming up when the time is appropriate. Okay, let us know. We've got a lot of really good ideas coming up. Thanks for your attention. As I said, you will receive a certificate of participation and a handout as well. That doesn't get to you by tomorrow afternoon. Drop me a line at Formazione and I'll get it to you again. Okay. Next week, we have one of our running webinars on special needs, special educational needs. Maybe you joined us. It will be in Italian. I'll be there to do the introduction, but it'll mainly be by our special guest, Dr. Roberta Tardi. It's going to be talking about the needs of a language learner, that is observational competence. So please join us then. I think you'll find it really useful. Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone, and I hope it's not too cold where you are, or at least you're warm inside. Okay. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next week. Bye.